Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. Something important is happening. A big company and a state are fighting. The company is called X, the state is New York. This fight is about a new rule. The state of New York made this rule. It is about the internet and what people say online. The rule wants social media companies to show how they stop bad words and hate speech online. Social media is where many people talk and share ideas. At this time, Donald Trump was the president. A man named Elon Musk is very important for the company X. He has strong ideas about free speech. The company X does not like this new rule. They say it is not fair. They say the state cannot tell them how to manage speech. They think people should be free to say many things online, but the state of New York says the rule is important. They say it helps people online. They want companies to be clear about their rules for safety. So the company X is taking the state to court. This means they are having a legal fight. They want a judge to say the new rule is wrong. This fight is about a big idea. How do we use the internet? How free should people be to speak? How do we stop harm or bad things from happening online? It is a difficult question. People have different ideas. This story is about this important fight. It is about a company, a state, a new rule, and the idea of free speech in the digital world. It shows how difficult it is to find a balance between letting people speak freely and keeping everyone safe online. 2. New York makes a rule. New York State decided to create a new rule. This rule is for companies that run social media websites and apps. The new rule is called the Stop Hiding Hate Act. The state wants these companies to be open about how they deal with hate speech online. The law asks social media companies to do two main things. First, they must tell people how they find and handle hate speech on their platforms. This means they need to share their rules clearly. They must explain what kind of speech they consider to be hate speech. They must also explain the steps they take when they find it. For example, do they remove the content? Do they warn the person who posted it? Do they stop the person from using the platform? These rules must be easy for people to find and understand. Second, the companies must report on their work. They need to show how well they are doing at stopping hate speech. This is like giving a report. They must share information about their progress over time. This helps the public see if the companies are getting better at keeping hate speech off their sites. It shows how much hate speech they are finding and what they are doing about it. Lawmakers in New York made this rule because they felt it was important. They believed that social media companies were not always clear about their actions. They thought that some companies did not handle harmful content very well. They felt that people needed to know exactly how these big companies manage content that can hurt others. They wanted companies to be more responsible for what is on their platforms. Some lawmakers felt that certain companies, like X, had problems with how they managed content in the past. The goal of the law is to make companies more transparent and accountable. This means showing what they do and being responsible for it. The law was written by state leaders and signed by the governor in December. A group that works against hate also helped create the law. What happens if a social media company does not follow this new rule? There is a punishment from the state. If a company does not share its rules or report its progress, it can be fined. This means the company must pay money to the state. The law says the fine can be very large. It can be up to $15,000 for every day the company does not follow the rules. This is a strong reason for companies to follow the law. This law is New York's way of making social media companies show their work. It forces them to be open about their rules and their efforts to stop hate speech. The state believes this will help make online spaces better and safer for people in New York. It is a rule that puts pressure on big companies to be clear and responsible. 3. The lawsuit begins. The company X did not like New York's new law. They thought the law was not right. So X decided to take action. X went to a court in New York City. They filed a lawsuit there. A lawsuit is when you bring a problem to court and ask a judge to decide. X is suing New York State. The main reason X is fighting the law is about free speech. Free speech means people can say what they think. X says the New York law goes against this important right. X believes the government should not tell people what they can say online. They think it is not the government's job to control speech on social media. The lawsuit says that deciding what is hate speech is very hard. People have different ideas about it. X argues that the government should not be the one to make this decision. They say it is not a role for the government to play. X thinks that laws like this one could stop people from speaking freely. They are worried that the government might try to stop ideas it does not like. The lawsuit names the state's main lawyer, the Attorney General, as the person representing New York State in court. X has said they are sure they will win this case. They believe the court will agree with them about free speech. So, the fight over the new law has now moved to the court. A judge will listen to both sides and make a decision. This decision will be very important for X and for other social media companies too. It will also be important for how governments can make rules for the internet in the future. X is standing strong on its belief in free speech online. 4. This happened before. The situation with X and New York is not completely new. X faced a very similar problem before, but in a different state, California. California created a law for social media companies. This law was quite like the one New York made. Some people say New York's law is almost a copy of California's law. X even called it a carbon copy. When California passed its law, X did not agree with it. X felt this law was wrong because it could hurt free speech. X believes that governments should not tell companies how to manage what people say online or make them share their rules in a specific way. Because of this, X took the state of California to court. The court in California listened to both sides. They studied the California law closely. In the end, the court made an important decision. The court ruled that parts of the California law were not right. Specifically, the court had problems with the part that asked companies to share details about how they handle certain content. The court agreed with X that this part of the law had issues related to free speech. The court decided to stop the state from making companies follow those specific parts of the law. This decision in California was a big success for X. It showed that judges could agree with X's view that these laws might limit people's freedom to speak online. After this court decision, California even agreed not to make X follow the part of the law about sharing information. This was a settlement based on the court's ruling. Now, with the New York law, X sees that it is very much like the California law. Because the laws are so similar, X feels strong and hopeful about winning this new case. X believes that the court in New York will see that the two laws are almost the same. X hopes the New York court will make a similar decision, just like the California court did. X's legal team thinks the reasons they won in California will also help them win in New York. They argue that the same free speech problems are in the New York law. They believe the court will protect free speech rights again. This past legal fight in California is very important for the case against New York. It shows that X has experience fighting these types of laws and has won before. This history is a key reason why X is confident in its fight against New York's new rule about online content. The company thinks the result will be the same this time because the laws are so alike and the issue is about free speech. The California case gives X a strong argument. 5. Why people disagree. People have very different ideas about the new law in New York. There are two main sides to this big argument. One side is New York State and the people who wrote the law. They believe that large companies like X must be clear and open with the public. They want X to tell everyone exactly how they find and remove hate speech and other harmful content on their platform. The lawmakers think these companies should be responsible for the things that users post online. They say that freedom to speak is very important, but it does not mean companies can just ignore bad or dangerous things being shared. They believe that companies have a duty to help make the internet a safer place for everyone. The lawmakers feel that X's actions, like going to court to stop the law, show exactly why this law is needed. They think X is trying to use the idea of free speech as a way to avoid doing what is right and being responsible. The lawmakers are confident that the law is good and that a judge will agree with them in court. They say X is using the First Amendment, which protects free speech, as a way to hide from being accountable. The other side is X, the company. They argue strongly against the law. X says it is not the government's place to tell a private company how to manage the content that users post. They say it is very hard to decide exactly what counts as hate speech because people have different ideas. X believes this difficult decision about content should be made by the company itself, not by the government. The company is very worried about censorship. They think that laws like this one can make it too easy for governments to stop people from saying things they do not like or agree with. X says this law is a step down a difficult path that could limit what people can share online and control their ideas. They argue that New York is simply trying to censor speech because the government does not agree with it. X sees this lawsuit as a very important fight for the freedom to speak online without the government controlling it. They believe the law goes against important rules about freedom in the country. This disagreement is about very important ideas for our time. Is the law a necessary step to make large companies responsible for what happens on their platforms and help protect people from harm online? Or is it a dangerous step where the government starts to control what people can say, which could limit freedom of speech for everyone. People on both sides have strong reasons for their beliefs and see the problem differently. This makes the legal case very important for everyone who uses the internet and shares ideas online. The court must listen to both arguments carefully and decide if the law is allowed based on the country's rules. But the bigger questions about online freedom and safety will continue to be important for the future of the internet. 6. A look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the person in charge of the company X. Before it was called X, it was called Twitter. Mr. Musk bought the company in the year 2022. He paid a lot of money for it, $44 billion. When Mr. Musk bought the company, he made many big changes. One big change was about the rules for what people can say online. Before, Twitter had rules about content moderation. This means they had rules about what speech was okay and what was not okay. Mr. Musk changed this policy. He believes in something he calls free speech absolutism. This means he thinks people should be able to say almost anything online. He thinks there should be very few rules about speech. After buying the company, Mr. Musk also made changes to the people who worked there. He fired the team that worked on content management. Now volunteers help with some of this work. Mr. Musk is a very rich person. He is also connected to politics. He was a close advisor to President Donald Trump. Because he is in charge of X and has political connections, his actions are important. People watch what he does with X very carefully. His ideas about free speech have caused problems with different governments, not just in New York. For example, X is having a legal fight with the European Union. The European Union has rules about online content. They say X did not follow these rules. So X and the European Union are in court. Mr. Musk's actions online have also caused debates. Some people say he has helped cause anger online. There was an example in the United Kingdom. Some people say his support for a leader there caused problems in the country. Some people who made the New York law say that Mr. Musk has a bad record on content moderation. They say this is why the law is needed. They believe he does not want to share information about how X handles hate speech. Mr. Musk's changes at X and his beliefs about free speech are a big part of why the company is fighting the new law in New York. He believes the government should not tell companies what speech is okay. He thinks companies should decide this themselves. 7. A fight about a big idea. This story about one company and one law is important, but it is also about something bigger. It is about a big idea for the world today. Social media platforms are a new thing in history. They let millions of people talk to each other very fast. This is good in many ways, but it also brings problems. One big problem is what people say online. Sometimes people say things that are not nice or are even dangerous. Social media companies have rules about this, but it is hard to decide what is okay and what is not okay. This is a challenge for all platforms every day. People have different ideas about how much power these companies should have. Should they decide what is allowed and what is not? Or should people have complete freedom to say anything? This is a big debate happening everywhere. The question also comes up, should governments make rules for the internet? Some people think yes. They say governments need to protect people from harm online. They think companies are not doing enough. They want laws that make companies tell people how they stop bad things. Other people think no. They say governments should not control what people say online. They worry that laws can stop free speech. They think governments might use rules to silence ideas they do not like. They believe the internet should be a free place. So this fight is not just about one company or one law in one state. It is a fight about a big idea for our digital world. It is about finding a balance. How can we have freedom to speak and share ideas online? And at the same time, how can we keep people safe from bad things like hate speech? This search for the right balance is very difficult. It is a question that many people are trying to answer now and for the future. 8. The story continues. So X, the company Mr. Musk owns, has sued New York State. This is a big step. Now the case goes to a court. A judge will look at the new law from New York. The judge will also listen to X's reasons why they think the law is not right. This is a very important time for the story. The judge has a difficult job. They must decide if New York's law is okay or if it goes against important ideas, like the idea of free speech. There are two main things that could happen next in court. One possibility is that the judge agrees with X. The judge might say that the New York law asks too much from the company. The judge might say the law tries to control what people can say online too much. If this happens, New York State will not be able to use this law. This is what happened with a similar law in California. X won that case, so they hope to win this one too. The other possibility is that the judge agrees with New York. The judge might say that the law is important for keeping people safe online. The judge might say that companies must be clear about how they stop hate speech. If this happens, X will have to follow the New York law. They will need to show how they manage bad and harmful words on their platform. What the judge decides is very important for more than just X and New York. Other states are watching this case. If New York wins, other states might decide to make laws like this one. They might feel it is a good way to make the internet safer. If X wins, it might be harder for other states to make these kinds of rules. It could show that courts do not like governments telling companies exactly how to manage online talking. This case also happens at a time when many people are thinking about the internet and rules. Mr. Trump was the president, and people like Mr. Musk have big ideas about free speech. How the court decides can affect future ideas about online rules, maybe even for the whole country. It shows that the government and big internet companies do not always agree. This lawsuit is a big part of a larger discussion in our world today. How do we let people speak freely online, but also how do we stop harmful words and ideas? Who should make these decisions? Should it be the companies? Should it be the government? There are no easy answers. So the story is not finished. The court must decide. And after that, people will continue to talk and think about these big questions. The fight about online safety and free speech will go on.